ERC for November 7th. I'm Neil Bronstein. I'm filling in for Christina, who is out of the office right now. And first item is a preliminary plan for a sanctuary in Up County.
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Serber, lead reviewer on this application. This is a preliminary plan amendment. Earlier this summer, there were a series of 3 amendments that were done for the sketch plan, the preliminary plan, and the site plan. They were all done in late July. And this is following on the heels of that. It's an amendment to the preliminary plan. It's an addition, essentially an addition, just not physically connected to the existing Thermo Fisher building. It's for a 7-story bioscience, life science R&D facility. You can see it located here, where my cursor is flashing. That is where the proposed building would be. This is within this.
That's a pit.
This would be within the CR zone.
Stay with us.
And in terms of any outstanding issues, I think the biggest comment by far has been just that the backgrounds and sort of what's being shown for the plans need to reflect what was approved. Currently, everything that's being shown is from previous amendments, and it's not showing the context of what was just approved. So that would be one of the biggest things. The other thing, we had comments related to the building, trying to better understand what is proposed for the building as far as the building entrance. How does the structured parking work in relation to the life science and R&D components? And then there were some comments related to some of the street widths and so forth, but I'll leave that for transportation to cover. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to you, Scott.
Sure. So just initially, I think the applicant's team is up on here virtually. Frank Cohen, Keith Switzer, and I'm not sure if Davis Walker with Kinley. Okay, so I'm here in person, and we've got the team on the virtual. Just the comment about showing the approved Gauche plan, we'll certainly do that. The timing was a little off when we initially submitted. It was going to the board, I think, and so it's been approved. One question we had though: have the resolutions been issued yet? Okay, so do you still want us then to show the Gauche approvals? I mean, it doesn't.
That was during Scott. So during intake, that was a big point of confusion, I think, with Megan, was that we were trying to show the Gauche plans, but they weren't technically approved and recorded. So we were getting conflicting comments about, square footages and tables to be shown.
But again, we're happy to put that on there now. It's again, I thought the resolutions would have been issued by now, but we're happy to do it. So not a problem.
I think we're very close, and given that you want to move forward as soon as possible, then I think let's just go ahead and do that. Jeff was the reviewer for both applications, so he's very familiar with the numbers and how everything has to come together.
Right.
If you have any questions or if it's confusing at all for you, he knows the ins and outs.
I think it's really to what we've done so far. So if there's anything further we need to do, I mean, they're just numbers. So we're happy to present them any way you'd like them presented. So. Then the other point about the building design, initially when we started this process, started talking to you about it, we expected to be kind of having preliminary and site plan together. But then with the kind of the breakdown in the lab market, the site plan part of it and the expenses that go into that have kind of been put aside for right now. But we're happy to talk to you. We'll set up a separate meeting to talk to you about the design of the building. We certainly took into consideration all the design comments we got before, and that's still part of the program. We just don't necessarily have elevations, massing diagrams that really make sense. But like things like the screening of the part of the loading area, we have that, and it's a lot along the lines of what we discussed. So a nice screening area. So we can set up a separate meeting that we're happy to present the information to you. We just might not have the plans done yet, and we're trying to avoid that expense at this point. So, but anything we need to show in terms of you making preliminary plan approval findings, we'll certainly provide.
Just to elaborate a little bit on that, I think that the struggle was we were looking at it in plain view, very conceptual sort of level of what you have, and we just needed to understand better, like the parking inside. So how is the parking laid out inside the building?
Okay,
And relating to the building, is it connected? Is it under the office? Is it above the office? Just wasn't clear how it was all coming together.
Okay.
And we might not need like we don't need full architectural drawings or elevations, but we need to understand how those aspects, how the use is gonna work together, the parking with the.
okay. We did have floor plans so I don't know if that's enough or do you just need them now stacked up on top of each other or?
No, I think what you've provided so far is.
Okay.
I can work with.
This is provided after
This was after the.
the original submittal?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. So I haven't seen those. Jeff saw them, but our team, we discussed it early on when we didn't have those. I
Right.
appreciate.
No, that's not a problem. We worked it out, we did with Jeff, last week, I think it was.
Perfect.
So, no,
Okay.
so hopefully and then again, we're happy to have a meeting, talk about the other aspects. Like, again, we understood that where the front door location was very important to you. We're not moving away from that. We just don't have the architecture. So,
You're 2 steps ahead of me.
yeah,
I
no.
appreciate that.
That's
Thank you.
unusual. So just a couple quick questions, about some of the comments, if I could. We'll work with Marie. I think Marie's on. We think, Marie, we can provide all the information you need at this point for your approval letter.
Okay, sounds good.
And the only reason our initial question, which we directed to you, was we just don't have the building fully designed yet, but we think we can provide the information. And I'm hoping that'll get some nods of heads from the design team. Yeah.
You can also provide information at this time that would change via an amendment at a later stage. So
And yeah, anything we submit subject to amendment at site plan.
absolutely perfect.
Okay. There was comments from, just some clarification, from DOT's comments. Brenda.
Brenda is working on it. She's out
Okay.
of the office this week, but she'll be back.
We just weren't sure it was asking about about the previous approval conditions still being applicable. And when I say previous,
So what we want you to do is, because it's a preliminary plan amendment, correct? So we need to go through all the amendments. And I think we did this with the last project too, didn't we? So basically what we want you to do is go through all the preliminary plan amendments, figure out what conditions still continue to apply. And if they have, or if they've been addressed, and let us know in a just a point by point response.
would you have done that for the Gauche plan?
I believe we did,
So nothing's changing.
right, but I think we just need to update it. And so you're gonna have to go, because it is an amendment of that preliminary plan. We need to make sure that there's no conditions that we're leaving out, like some mitigation that's required or something. I don't know.
Okay. Can we simply copy what was done for Gauche?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you
Okay,
can do the same, but
because again,
I assume it was done. I don't know for certain, but it should be like, because I think Brenda will have to go back. I think we should all go back and look at the conditions.
Are you referring to the DOT letter conditions that you had for the Gosher property? Or are you referring to
in
the
general.
conditions in the resolution?
Because sometimes you guys have conditions on transportation stuff that we don't have.
So
So
we'll be going through that.
we'll be doing it as well, but you need to look at it as well.
So we're gonna be going through that exercise for the conditions in the resolution. And I think that Rebecca also needs to see the DOT letter conditions. In addition to that, we typically don't look at those. The DOT letter, we don't look at.
So if you can do the DOT letters.
okay, and unless I look at it and I think there's something wrong with it, I'm gonna use whatever was done with
Yeah.
Gauche.
That's fine.
And then if you see something wrong with it, you'll.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. We're continuing to talk, and I don't know if you have when you'll be getting back to us with what you're gonna be recommending.
So I think we made some progress, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca, but we seem to be in agreement that we want to move forward with removal of the slip lane. The final details on how that's designed, we're still trying to work out. Upgrading crosswalks and cross ramps.
It's, big.
They look like they were recently done, so that may not, but at least I showed them on the plan, make sure that we can work them with the removal of the slip lane. And then potential second improvement is we're looking to the possibility of restriping the
Cloverleaf.
northbound Cloverleaf regular intersection. Because right now it's 2 lanes with a middle dashed out lane, potentially moving the far right lane, which is a turn lane, into that hashed area, and then simply removing that far right lane. So we're still working on the details of that, seeing if that's, we're mindful of not going, a quarter mile beyond the site, because it does look like the striping would need to take a little bit more space and distance. So we're trying to work out those details, but at least the slip lane, that's our primary focus.
And the slip lane was something we had acknowledged we provide. It was just, we requested to do it as a phased. Providing as a phase, because we are planning on proceeding maybe with a smaller section, a smaller portion of the approved density, and then coming in with a second phase. So for us, that would be important.
Yeah, so then we're still trying to figure out how that's going to look. Understood.
Okay. And then I think the only other comment we wanted to have a discussion with is, and again, it's just trying to recognize that we're only at preliminary, and it would be what's required for concept stormwater management approval. So I don't know, Davis, I think Mark Etheridge is on the line.
Yeah, I'm here.
Mark, I think it'd be best maybe if Davis gives us a request to consider something a little bit different, maybe for stormwater management.
No, we just wanted clarification. I think we got that, is that the checklist said, said that we only had to have concept storm, like just a receipt that we had submitted. And then we've gotten a comment that we need a approval of concept stormwater management. So we just want confirmation on which we need to be following.
I think you're going to have the approval before you can go to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, I can clarify that the amendment submittal checklist indicates the items that you need to have at the time of submittal. So when you submitted the application, all I needed to know is that you also had a receipt from Stormwater Management saying that you submitted the concept. You didn't have to have the approval at the time of application submittal. That's it. But Mark is correct. Before planning board, we need the approval.
That's a requirement of code, right?
Does that clarify your question, Davis?
Yes, that clarifies that for stormwater management. So I guess the other would be for WSSC. I mean, Kurt, I don't know if he's on the call. He had a few comments on here, but recommended us for approval. So just wanted to get clarification about WSSC as well while we're all together.
WCC is here. I am Karen Carpio, Supervisor Project Manager. So what is your question about the court comments?
So yeah, he had comments, but are these informational comments? Because he had
Yeah, that is informational comments only because you have a HPA and site utility already with us.
Okay. All right.
So sorry, this is Keith Switzer. Davis, and can we go back on the stormwater concept plan? Do you have clarity? Are we going to have to do a lot more at this stage to get to that concept plan for Mark?
We have comments. We just haven't gotten into addressing them because we weren't sure if that's how we needed to move forward.
I think we were pretty far along with it, though, weren't we?
Yeah, I haven't looked at them recently, but I mean, it definitely requires some effort, but we will be able to.
I guess from my perspective, I just want to make sure we're not having to do a full stormwater management plan, that preliminary plan. Is there, again, Mark, just making sure we're on the same page of relative to what do we have to submit, and is that a lot of work, Davis, at this stage for you and cost?
Well, we need enough to know that the stormwater management conceptual design is workable and feasible, And so I
Sure.
think we've been working towards that. There was, I think, some issues with an existing swale or something on one side of the property. I don't remember exactly what was going on. It's been a while since I looked at this one in a lot of detail. But I think we had done a couple of reviews already on the stormwater concept, and I think we were getting close. I thought we were getting close to wrapping it up. I hope so.
Okay. So it sounds like then hopefully, Davis, we can just provide a little bit more information to get more comfortable with the concept, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we can talk about
You'll
internally.
need to look
but-
at you'll need to look at the detailed comments and make sure we have everything wrapped up.
Correct.
Sure.
All right. So Mark, if we get a little bit too deep in it, we might reach out to you again and make sure we're providing, again, what was really needed at preliminary plan stage, right?
Yeah. Andrew Kohler has been reviewing this, and anytime you want to have a meeting to set up with him, just contact him and me, and we can set something up to go over it with you. No problem.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Mark.
Mhm.
All right. Sorry, Davis. I know you were talking about WSSC versus.
No, I think we got the information that we need on that.
Okay. And then I had a question on the fire department connection plan. There was a comment about that, Davis. Do you want to bring that up and like what detail we need there? I don't know if anybody's on from fire.
Yes, Marie's on from Fire, Marie LeBlanc.
Marie, there's a comment about locating fire department connections in the garage and the front of the building. I presume if we provide you with our recommendations, that'll be where you review and provide feedback. Is that what you're looking for?
I guess I'm looking for a knowledge that you're going to make good, you're going to make good decisions as we move forward with this.
Sure.
So if you
Sure,
kind of
yeah.
tell me that we think our FDCs will be in this area at this
Yep.
stage, that's fine. And then we can finalize it as you go to site plan.
Okay, yeah, we'll locate them. I mean, you'll have, again, really easy access in the garage or on the edge of the garage, off the front and sides of the building. So we'll locate them relative to where we would put them from a code perspective, and then you could comment on it.
I think that's the way we should do this.
Awesome.
Okay, so anything else from the team, the applicants team? Frank, you good?
I'm good. Thank you guys.
All right, anything else?
I had one item I wanted to get clarification on. Where was this? I think we were just asking on comment 49 if we could get clarification about the CRT zone. Is that it was asking for a table showing conformance with the CRT zone, but I don't believe we are in a CRT zone.
I think it's just, straight comment, or I mean, we have a data table. If there's anything we need to now change because of the GOSH approval, we will, but if there's anything missing from it, you'll let us know.
Scott, there was one, I think Jeff made a comment at the outset around street widths. So I don't know if that's worth touching on, talking about.
So we're not changing any of the private streets around us. We think we only have 2 curb cuts, by the way, which we wanted connection through. So that's all we're doing, though, curb cut wise, I think. Then there's the private street that runs between the 2 buildings. I don't think it's particularly wide. So we're not just sure where that comment's coming from. We can talk about it in a subsequent meeting, but.
I did not.
No, I provided that comment. It was something that came up in a discussion that we had. There was just, in looking at the existing street widths, it just seemed excessively wide when looking at that for that through connection. So we're just trying to better understand.
It might have been just the lines.
And it may very well be that.
Yeah, could be, but because I don't think we're doing a particularly boulevardy type,
Okay.
Grand Boulevard or anything.
Right, we thought from a scale perspective that road that you're making the connection would be probably on the narrow side, maybe one of the narrowest streets, and it just didn't look like that on the line. It would have been the scale or the line weights, like Jeff is saying.
Okay.
So just look into it.
Conversation, we can certainly make sure we're in line with what you're looking for. Okay, anything else then from?
So just to clarify, Scott, you said the site plan is going to be submitted later. are you anticipating to complete the preliminary plan application process first and then submitting the site plan, or do you want the two to kind of overlap?
It's probably more of a funny question. When do we think we might come in with the site plan?
I think at this phase, given where we are in the preliminary plan, we want to push ahead with that and then come back with site plan.
Yeah, I think preliminary will wrap up first and then submit site plan. If Frank gets traction, I mean, I think it's obvious, if Frank gets traction with somebody, then you'll see a site plan moving pretty quickly. I mean, so, but right now, push ahead.
And then second question, you had mentioned earlier something about phasing, that this is sort of the first phase. Are you reflecting that in the plans that you submitted, or I wasn't sure how you're capturing that phasing aspect on your submittal? And it could be just because I didn't look at the drawings. It may be.
No, I don't think we put anything on the drawings yet. I don't know if it'll be a notational or it'll be and a plan, or put a note or phasing table or whatever and show a plan. I don't know. I guess we might show it on a plan, but it's part of what we're working out with Chris as well. And so it's sort of going to depend on how that conversation comes out, and then we'll put whatever needed on the plans. So nothing's on there right now, but that's what I'm kind of envisioning, like a phasing table, and then maybe graphically showing it if need be.
The phasing table would show the density that you're getting ready to build now, and then additional density that's coming later. Is that what you're thinking?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we're going to get the total amount of density approved, and then within that total amount, the first phase, I forgot the numbers, at 50,000-ish. I think it's like 50.
Yeah, 50 to 60 is probably a good number to.
Yeah. And because that is a realistic chunk that could be maybe taken down given the market. Obviously, if a full tenant comes in, that's great, and we'll proceed with everything. And it's really just to help with the offsite improvements is one of the main reasons we're doing it. But it also makes sense from a marketing perspective.
So the drawings that submitted now, do they have the overall density that you're seeking, or do they just have the phase one that you want?
Yeah, we came in with everything. It's
Yeah.
just as we started talking through a way to manage the offsite improvements, we started thinking of the phasing, and again, also just the ability, a little more flexibility in the market, because 50,000 is a little bit easier chunk to maybe get out there than. And once we can, kind of come to agreement on the offsite, then we can put whatever information is needed in the plans before it goes to the board, or when you need to do your staff report or whatever.
And Sandra, we would stay, our goal is to stay within, substantial conformance within the footprints we have, right? So we would work hard to stay within that as we face this.
Gotcha.
Do we have any dates to talk about right now in terms of resubmission, or?
I'll be forwarding you guys a schedule.
Okay. Anything else?
I had two other comments I wanted to talk through when we have everybody here, mostly just because these are kind of design opinion comments and wanted to get clarification and get open the lines of communication here. One, first starting with the comment 57 about the loading dock is an area of concern based on the location. And could you provide some?
So I think we talked a little bit about that, Davis. We may not have been online yet, but that's the type of detail we're going to have a kind of a separate meeting with the design team, Jeffrey, and planning folks.
Okay.
And for example,
yeah.
I said that even if it's not necessarily obvious in the plans, that the screen wall that you had talked about before is something we're still planning on providing. But again, we might not have been live with the mic, with the audio.
Yeah, I don't think you
we
were.
had that conversation. So basically, all of the design questions that were raised by mainly Jeff, we're going to have a meeting with them to talk through and work, and that's how we're going to approach that.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in, Sandra and Jeff, ever since the beginning of this, we haven't changed really any of the direction from what we've talked about, the corner entrance, the screening of the garage, all of that, or the loading dock. I mean, so it's all the same approach from a design perspective, and we can get into that.
Okay. Last chance, folks. Davis, Andy, Frank, Keith.
So, I mean, I guess what I'm hearing, we're gonna have a separate meeting with the design, to go through what Keith just mentioned, the transportation, with Chris, stormwater management, and then there's some additional work potentially on the phasing coming out of that discussion with Chris.
Good summary.
Yeah, Neil, is this an instance that we would use next week's interagency work session?
Certainly can if that's what you want to do.
Do you want to do that?
Depends on when.
We have a placeholder on our calendars a week from today in the morning for the work session, and depending on the topics and issues you want to discuss, we'll invite the appropriate staff. So, just let us know what you're ready to discuss next week on Tuesday with the staff.
So this would be, I mean, I think the main thing is whether Chris is gonna be ready at that point.
We do need to do a follow-up with DOT. I also won't be in the office on that Tuesday morning. We could discuss other things. I won't be here.
Right.
I'll be at the council.
So do you want to focus on design on that meeting next week?
Yeah, why don't we knock off design then? And so this will just be a chance for us to walk through their design questions and answer them to the team. And I think, do you have a particular time on this would be Tuesday, the 14th? And any particular time?
Frank and I will be together at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, the 14th. So we could do 10 o'clock. That would work for Frank and myself. If that's okay with you, Frank.
Yeah, be great.
Would 9:30 be okay? 9:30 to 10:30? Or you're not available?
Frank, that would be up to you. I'm not sure. Can you get to where we're gonna be?
I can make that work. I think you've got more travel, so.
I've got a little more travel. Yes, let's. I want to progress this, so I will. Let's do 9:30.
So we will send you an invite and we'll include our staff that needs to participate for the design discussion. If there's any other topics you want to discuss that we need other agencies, please let us know, okay?
Could we touch on the stormwater then as well?
I was gonna suggest a separate with
Okay.
Mark and his.
I think that's prudent. We'll do a separate stormwater meeting. It gets more detailed than we'd
Yeah,
be wasting
sorry.
everybody else's time.
Yeah,
The only one that might be easily resolved would be with Maria on the fire department connection comment. We could show her the floor plans and we could talk about where we would like to put them. And I don't know if that's worth it. Since it's more building work.
I'm not available on Tuesday. Your best bet for me is going to be email me a plan and we can work
Yeah,
something out.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. We'll do that. So it'll just be building, kind of entrances and parking garage access and loading dock stuff. Like, so we can pull up the plans and walk through what we have.
I know that works. Yeah, I have a meeting at 10:30, but I'm gonna try and slide that a little bit later. And then we might be able to accommodate you at 10 a.m. If that works better for you. If not,
That works better. It just gives us a little
if
bit
I
more
need
time.
you, then we'll stick with 9:30, but I'll try to
Okay.
do that for you. Okay?
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
and you'll send the invite then?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll come from you.
Emily.
Emily, okay,
Okay,
we'll get it. Thank you.
good, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Appreciate it.
Is ERC for the second item, Saddle Ridge Administrative Subdivision Plan in Up County. Are all the representatives for the applicant, are they on the line?
Hi, Neil. Jeff Robertson with Cass Engineering, along with Ray Sabrino on behalf of the applicant.
All right, good. Okay, Alex, if you're ready, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I'm the lead reviewer on this one. This is for the Saddle Ridge application. It's 11528 Highland Farm Road. It's a proposed administrative subdivision plan in Potomac. The zoning is RE2, and it's a subdivision to create 3 new lots for 3 single-family homes and some accessory buildings. And so it's currently around 24 acres, and it's currently improved with a single-family home that's under construction and a driveway. So our comments were mostly concerning transportation and fire department requirements. From a subdivision standpoint, we just want to make sure that the plan is meeting requirements for flag lots because it has specific regulatory issues. And that's pretty much the summary. So happy to answer any questions on our comments.
Okay, thanks, Alex. I think I saw Marie here, correct?
I am here.
Hi, Marie.
Hello.
I don't have any particular questions to your comments. We'll update the plan and get that back into the mix. But there was a question that Alex posed about there's accessory structures on Lot A. Are there any particular fire department access requirements for accessory structures on that main lot?
As long as they all meet normal accessory structures for a single family residential lot, and you're good to go. But I don't know what those are. Any kind of ancillary use, commercial type use, anything like that, obviously, as you know, triggers additional requirements. So just if you can tell me what those are, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, they're typical, pool house, pool equipment building. There's an observatory type building. Nothing that is going to be any sort of dwelling unit. Correct, Ray?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So that's just information that needs to show up on the plan. No additional dwelling units and no additional commercial occupancies, and you are good to go for that one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We can do that. Yeah.
So I'm just going to move through this. The WSSC comments are noted, and we'll confer with WSSC separately about addressing those comments. I don't perceive any of those to be of any particular concern. Don't have any questions pertaining to the zoning. There was a comment regarding the second driveway to this lot, and that driveway is basically a service entrance for access to the building, to the main building and to the accessory structures. Is there any particular issue with that service driveway remaining?
We would prefer to keep it as just one driveway, but I think that it's okay. My understanding is it's not really a code issue. It should be fine.
Okay. Again, I think we can address some of the area design comments. I think most of those are applicable to final design for the 2 additional lots we're trying to create. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just going through my lists here. Noted on the comment to planning board, review and approval, or planning board hearing, I should say. There was a comment about the building restriction lines. Does that need to be a completely separate sheet? Or more appropriate to just clean up what we have and try to make it a little more legible? I think that was your comment,
I
Alex.
think it would make the most sense to create a separate sheet that shows the full plan without the sheet lines. It's a little bit hard to read with those.
Yeah, yep.
And so if you're able to show the BRL lines as the cohesive total development plan, it would make it a lot easier for our review to make sure it's meeting flag lot requirements.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I think that answers my questions pertaining to the administrative plans. The next list of comments were from Doug, pertaining to forest conservation plan. Doug, you're here, correct?
Yes, Jeff, I'm here.
Good morning. We had spoken, obviously, regarding the forest conservation worksheet, so we'll make those edits. You had mentioned that based on the new worksheet, which I now have obtained from your website, I didn't know there was a new one, so thank you. You indicate the land use will be CDR, but I think that's MDR, correct?
No, I need to double check on that one, Jeff.
Comment change mark 8. CDR, I believe, was RE2 cluster, and the MDR is RE2. But we can table that. So this one gets a little bit complicated, obviously, because we have these existing forest conservation easements on the property. And as I understand it, we're basically completing the worksheet as if those easements don't exist, right? So we're looking at existing forest based on the NRI, and then we're running through the worksheet regardless of those easements, but any new easement will need to respect those existing easements. Do I have that basically correct?
Basically, when you say new easements must respect the old easements, what do you mean?
Well, there's going to be a requirement, an additional requirement for additional conservation easement. And we're not going to be able to modify the previous easements in any way other than expanding them. Is my
Correct.
assumption.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
I got this direction from our
Yeah.
attorneys.
Yeah.
And so what, in the long run, what will eventually happen is that this plan will supersede the previous FCP and pull the whole property in under one plan.
Right, but we're not going to be able to reconfigure the easements that were already agreed to by the planning board.
That's correct.
Unless we expand upon them.
Right. Now, like you said, the forest in there will be counted as existing forest, and then it also then turn right around and be counted as forest saved within the existing easements.
Right. So there's two areas on site that were existing easement, but there's no forest in the existing easement. I'll direct you to that composite sheet, FCP2. I don't know if you can bring that up.
Thought I could. Okay, there we go. See that, Jeff?
Yeah, so at the bottom of the page, where I have sheet 9 and sheet 10 denoted, there is an existing area that was proposed for planting as part of the previous forest conservation plan. So there's nothing in that, or there's trees in it, but it needs supplemental planting, right? That replanting area there at the bottom. I assume that I can use that area in my calculation for new forest, right?
Yes.
Or in my reforestation requirement. Okay. Okay. That was the crux of my questions. Everything else is pretty straightforward. I think I follow that. I can reach out to you separately with any other questions or comments. So I don't think I have any questions for any other plan reviewers at this time. Ray, do you have anything you'd like to raise or?
No, I don't. I actually thought it was pretty straightforward.
Okay. All right, Neil. So I guess we're at a position, right, where we figure out when we need to have all this stuff resubmitted and worked out to you guys for the next steps in the process. Is that right?
Yeah. What their schedule is.
So I can talk a little bit about it. Let me pull it up. I should have already sent you a schedule, but I'll double check that I did that.
Oh, I'll check too. It didn't jump out at me in E-plans, but it might be in there.
So we want your final submittal for this plan or with this application by December 4th. And then preferably a couple of weeks before that, we should get your first revision at least. So that kind of keeps us on track to make sure that we're able to handle the review well. And so that's for a final planning board date of January 18th.
Okay. I don't see any issues with that currently. Hope to better that date a little bit so we can get some feedback and address things if we have to during the holidays, but that sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks.
last item for DRC today. It's a concept plan, Summit Avenue project in Mid-County. And we have the applicants here as well as the Mid-County team is here, so just leaving up there.
I'm leading it.
All right, go ahead.
Thanks, Neil. So this is concept plan 5/20/24/0070. A proposal for a 21 unit development on Summit Avenue in Kensington. Thanks so much for submitting this concept plan that builds on the vision of the county's general plan that was approved last year. We really appreciate your efforts to introduce more housing types into Kensington. But as we mentioned in our comments, the county is still working on the laws and policies to implement the recommendations of the general plan. So there are some major challenges with this proposal, primarily due to the size of the site and the proposed density, and then all the other requirements that are needed on the property, including fire and rescue access, landscape screening, stormwater management, height and setback compatibility. There are also some storm drainage capacity issues in this area that needs to be studied prior to any development approval. So this is the final step in the concept plan process, and we have representatives from all the county agencies here. So we're happy to answer any questions you have about the comments or anything else.
Thank you. My name's Ben Levy, and I'm Adam Eisenberg. We are homeowners in for some of these lots that are here actually. And before we get started, I did want to just thank everybody for your time and your really detailed and sometimes eloquent comments that were really, really helpful for us all. We see that you all put a lot of time and effort into this, and we really appreciate it, and it's really helping us to develop our plan. For us, we would like to discuss with you all and hear some feedback in this meeting, if possible, about how about the idea that we feel is quite justifiable to convert this to a CRT zone. Obviously, this for us seems to be sort of the most, I would say, tricky point that we saw on all the list of comments. We have lived in this neighborhood for quite some time where I think for most of our lives, both of us have lived in Montgomery County. We've seen a lot of changes in the area, and we've also understood the Kensington sector plan and the town's plan to grow as a small little town. And we've spoken with people who, with actually members in the community and actually people in the council and the mayor about this particular project and their plan. And I think if anybody has driven northbound from Cedar and Summit from Wisconsin to where it hits Knowles, you may also understand that this fits what we think fairly well into being a CRT, a sort of commercial residential transitional property, as the four properties that you'll see there that are next to the HOC, which one day potentially will be a school. We think that this actually provides a perfect transition from the R60 to this more dense town center. So we would love to hear your feedback on whether you are in agreement with us and if you have any concerns about that in this forum, first and foremost.
Well, thanks for the explanation. So we can really just give you feedback on what we're looking at right now. We would have to see something that we, would be able to comment on. So this
what you showed us here, you know, there are a lot of obstacles, lots of challenges with this proposal. CRT, I do want to mention, is commercial residential town, not transition. So, you know, that's something you might want to think about. The properties that are actually in the town are zoned CRT, I believe, for town center. So you might want to think about that when you're looking at rezoning. But we can just comment on really what we're looking at now.
Okay. And so what would you think your comments are for whether you agree that this could be a CRT in the way that, which I believe we have as residential 1.0, where is it? C.05 and a CRT 1.0 altogether, H45. So that's what we've presented. And with your understanding of the neighborhood, how does this look to you from that zoning standpoint?
Again, this plan has a lot of challenges and obstacles, and that's what we're commenting on.
Okay.
So I can provide a little bit more detail. Matt Kim, I'm the regulatory supervisor from Mid-County.
Hi, Matt.
We spoke on the phone.
Yes.
So, you know, we really, as Emily said, we appreciate the opportunity to review the concept plan, and the devil really is in the details. And so we're not opposed to a rezoning on this property, but, you know, a number of things that Emily touched on, the need to provide an area for stormwater management, to meet the setback requirements, to screen the property from the adjacent homes, to deal with the fire access and the circulation. There were some questions about if the cellar space that you were showing within the proposal actually met the zoning ordinance definition of cellar space, and that would impact the FAR. And so, you know, really through the concept plan, we need to talk about the specific dimensional requirements of the project. So not opposed to a rezoning, but I think the project as it's laid out has, as Emily said, some obstacles. And so, you know, whether it's a CRT or perhaps a lower density CRN, there's probably a rezoning potential, but maybe not at the density that you're showing in this particular application, just because there are a number of factors that need to be considered.
You know, part of it is Ben and I were trying to do this on our own at this point, rather than spend money to get somebody else to develop. So we really wanted to get feedback early on, then to try and come up with a professional plan and bring other people in who really have the profession to help us see this to fruition. But at this point, we were really, is it a possibility of getting it zoned and rezoned in a sense, like if we address some of these things and reduce some of the density that.
You know, we're not saying that rezoning is not possible here. It's just a matter of it. And what we tried to do in the comments was really cite the sections of the zoning ordinance that we were referring to, so that they're not opinions about maybe you should step it back a little bit more, or maybe you should provide screening. It was the zoning ordinance requirement in this section, so that we could point you to the right place, so that you could, you know, continue to make the decisions.
And so thank you so much for saying that, Matt, because when we look at, you know, we're probably a little bit earlier stage than maybe some of the other people that come in and are presenting. We did heed your suggestion to the extent we could, Matt, to define as much as we could at this relatively early stage and have something that we all could discuss. But when we looked at your suggestions, your comments, we've you know, and how we look at it is, oh yeah, no problem. We could do a 5-foot screen there. Oh, move those 2 parking spots, no problem. So we have actually, prior to doing all this, we actually have spoken to a civil engineering firm who has already worked on one of the other projects in the area that did not do a bad job. And they gave us some suggestion about some feedback on the storm drains capacity of our particular site, which we believe is going to be
different than what's on the Knowles Avenue.
It's different than the Knowles Avenue inlets. So yeah, so for us, when we look at these comments, we think, you know, no problem. Changing pervious paver driveway to an asphaltic or, you know, driveway, yeah, no problem. You know, and so we think that these are items that would be very easily addressed. We're not even too concerned about just making these little changes, like the 20-foot to 30, potentially 30-foot rear setback is something that I think we can work with. And so, but yes, I think now I'm understanding through your lens, Matt, that if we can get the plan into the planning the requirements of the CRT or CRN zone, which feels like there are some small modifications that we would have to make, that you are, as you're saying, representatives of the county who have some decision-making and, I guess, influence. I think the word you used is wouldn't necessarily be opposed to a rezone, considering the circumstance. And so that's really helpful.
Right, and with the zoning code citations, chapter 59, it's the county code, and so we can't recommend approval of any application that's not consistent with 59, which is zoning ordinance, with 22A, which is forest conservation, with stormwater law. And so there are a number of different requirements that come into play, and we need to make sure that they're all being met before we can make a recommendation.
Got it. So we would like to talk about a couple other points. We don't plan to go through all 65 points. So don't worry, but a couple things that we'd like to talk about are that there was one comment about building height. And I think that we see in the neighborhood, other CRT and CRN have 45-foot height. But we are a little bit further out from the town center. And I think Kensington Sector's plan, the Kensington Sector plan talks about kind of a cascading down so that it ends up meeting up where you're transitioning from to the R60. And so our comment was that, so of course the R60 is 35. So our question was, do you feel that we could be in the 40 to 45 foot height range, especially considering a lot of times, since the way that you measure building height in R60 is from the middle point of a roof, and you can have 12 pitched roofs, that you end up getting 45-foot height from some neighboring properties as a permitted use. So we're wondering if you have some feedback on the applicability of, because something that would be CRT or CRN in this particular position and being in that 40 to 45-foot height range.
So what you really want to look at are the compatibility requirements. There's a height step back requirement from many single family house. So
you mean that little 45-degree angle thing?
Yeah,
yes.
At the step back, which I think is 1.5 times what it would be required for the adjacent house.
Okay.
So that from that point, you can step back. You can increase your height 1 foot for every foot back.
Yeah.
So that's really the key in kind of determining what the maximum height is here.
Okay. So
what you've done here, stepping it down, I think you kind of have the basic idea right. You just need to check the details.
Yeah, some of the
See if it works.
We looked at the code, and so the way I understood that code is that if the neighboring property is 35, you start at 35, and then you're 1-to-1 away and up from there.
Right.
Correct.
From
Okay.
the setback line.
Okay. So it sounds like there would be some comfort in allowing a 45-foot height, but so long as, maximum, so long as in those areas, it has to meet the code in those areas that are close to the setbacks, basically.
Yeah, you absolutely have to meet the setback requirements. Yeah.
Okay. Another comment we have here is the drive. We understand that 10 to 12 foot or anything less than 20 feet, it's sort of intended for one direction traffic. You're in the 20-foot width. You're kind of looking at 2-direction traffic. We have a T here where both parts of the T are 20 foot wide. And there are some comments from, I believe it's Marie and I believe someone else as well. And I guess we're about whether fire trucks could reach this rear building. And I guess our intent was that, yeah, the fire truck would be able to reach to the back, they'd be able to turn, and they'd be able to kind of 3-point turn out of this place. But I think from the comments, it seemed like that maybe that wasn't possible. If you could, Marie, comment on that, if she's still there.
I'm here. The way you've laid this out, you have not left any room for the 25-foot radii that are required to make that an accessible turnaround. We can look closely at what your plan is doing, but you do have to get trucks within 50 feet of main side hinge door of either the lobby of, if each of these buildings have a lobby, or the main side hinge door of each individual unit, depending on how they're laid out. So I'm going to need more architectural information on what you're intending to do and see what our site design needs to be.
Okay. 50 feet from front door or side hinge door, okay, and 25-foot radii if you're planning a turn. Okay.
Correct. And the turnaround legs have to be a total of 140 feet, which you've also not shown at this point in time. So I showed 64 feet of clear distance on the screen right now. And again, I'm looking for 140, which I don't think.
Yeah.
Site, so.
Yes. Okay. Super helpful. Thank you so much for that clarity. We'd like to talk briefly with, I think it's potentially Richard and Deepak about access drives and curb cuts. We have a total of 4 curb cuts right now, probably like all in the 10 to 12 foot width. And we were proposing to reduce that to 3 curb cuts from 4. And your comments, one of the gentleman's comments was 1, the other ones was 1, maybe 2. So as you can see, our idea is to have a separate pickup drop-off service lane that's not for parking, but for that purpose. And to utilize the existing horseshoe driveway.
It currently exists like that.
Yeah. So if you provide some comment on it, I just want to understand a little bit about like where the county is coming from on these comments.
Well, a reduction in the number of curb cuts is good for pedestrian and bike facility.
Okay.
But also per the code, and I think I gave the code number in my comment, for an individual lot, you can only have a certain number of access points per 300 feet.
Yeah.
So I think my comment was 1, maybe 2. I think Deepak had some suggestions on lining it up with the driveway across the street.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we're coming from, is just creating a better pedestrian and bike environment.
Sure.
Reducing the number of curb cuts, aligning the access to be in context with what's around it.
Okay. Okay. So, and so when you have folks like us coming here and making some suggestions and they suggest something like 3, with this explanation that, like, for example, we're going from 3 lots to 1 by the opposite of subdividing. And what would you say? What do you say to that? You say, well, hey, your 1 lot says max 2, end of story, basically, or is there some little back and forth?
For the code, that's a code requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, and so there's no legacy status for there are driveways there today.
Okay.
And we'd like to continue them in the future. The whole site is being redeveloped
Okay.
to comply with the code.
Okay.
So the other thing is that driveway, that little horseshoe driveway does not comply with the code as well. It has to be a minimum of 40 feet between driveway access points.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Similarly, I believe it was potentially Deepak's comment, sort of envisioning that that you see on the south side of our plan set there, you see Anthony Street, which tees, but coming from the opposite side of the street, teeing into Summit. There's some envisioning of a potential crosswalk there, ADA, little ramp things that come from the sidewalk to the road and doing all of that. And I guess we feel that seems like very much overkill and maybe not even that great for the overall pedestrian and bike transportation there, considering right on the north side of, maybe even north of where you're actually seeing the top of this drawing, there's a brand new crosswalk there.
It's a controlled
That's
crosswalk
at-
with the light and
Yes,
it's
Yeah.
less than 100 feet from the edge of the fourth property.
yes, yeah, maybe even less than.
Yeah,
20.
it was, yeah, this is Deepak. It was my comment here. We think that it would be ideal to have a crosswalk there because if you look at the distance from that intersection, it's more than probably 200 feet, I guess. So we thought that to have a pedestrian crossing at that intersection would be recommended.
Is there a way we would analyze the pedestrian traffic that exists there, like you do with cars, and say, hey, most people
Yeah.
who are crossing that road are wanting to cross at the park and the stairs that go to that little
That's one of the
park.
reasons why, if there is no traffic impact study, I did ask for a analysis.
Yeah.
We would like to see that, the number of cars coming out, making a left, right, the counts basically, though
Yeah.
that also is, right now it's recommended. We don't have any counts or anything. So at this point, I just have to leave it in there.
Sure.
But once I have the counts and stuff, we can, it's at that point, we make a call if there could be a
Okay.
crossing, yes, no.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. Okay, so you're like a step ahead of our brilliant idea. Great.
As I mentioned, we have like about 5 minutes left, so just to be aware of whatever
Sure.
questions you want.
Okay, we're kind of getting into our lower priority questions, so all of this is super helpful for us. Public open space, I believe it was a comment from you, Emily. So it was the way that it was phrased, it made it seem that like the public, non-residents of this property are supposed to have access to this public open space.
CRT zone, yes.
In a CRT zone, yes, okay. And so we were imagining that open space would be nice for various reasons for nature, stormwater, and the residents, but we didn't know that it was something that was important to have to include the public onto this.
Well, for the type of zone you're asking for, it's really meant for more of a town center downtown area.
I see.
The public realm needs to be included
Oh, I see.
project. So
But
it's
we'll look at the zone.
it's even required here.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll take a look at that.
I had a question, Emily. You mentioned that, that the county hasn't passed enough towards the 2050 initiative. Is there any idea of when they might start getting some of this remedied?
Off the top of my head. We just have a new board, a new chair, so I think all those conversations are, just getting going.
Right. Okay. So there was a comment about, so as you may have seen, and you can maybe go to our next, the next drawing that shows more parking. It's kind of like our cellar floor plan / ground floor plan. We tried to figure out how to get parking spots on this property that are not on the road frontage side, the road side of our house, because we understood that was part of the code. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to have them parking spots, kind of like garages, I guess, where you drive into a cellar space on the sides of the houses on that aisle there. Can you confirm that that does work? Rather than requiring garages on the back side of the house, on the sort of side of the house?
We don't have any problem with garage spaces there, especially if you can see them from any of the adjacent properties. I think our question was more getting at how does it work if these are in a cellar, which is an underground, at least partly mostly underground space. How is that gonna work in this situation?
You're driving down, do you have, and turning in?
Ground level parking spaces like a regular pull-in garage, which it looks like, would work here.
Sure.
If the ground doesn't really slope there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so that's just a pull-in, it's not a cellar.
Right. Yeah, that's probably true. I think how we were envisioning is that we would be heading down a slope, but you're probably right. It might not make sense to be digging down there and putting that in a more of a cellar space. So I think that's actually a good point.
Well, it's, not clear. Be possible.
And so we understand that for fire, pervious pavers are a no-go, but are we able to use pervious pavers on areas that are not the fire lane, but are for parking or not emergency vehicles driving?
As long as they, are sturdy enough to park on occasionally, it's definitely a possibility. We would look at them, but.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Mark Etheridge real quick. If you're talking about using them for stormwater management, there are factors that have to be taken into consideration. They can't be within 10 feet of a building foundation. You have to have underlying soils that will infiltrate. So we love pervious paving where we can use it as far as part of your stormwater management protocols. Just want to let you know that there would be some other outstanding issues that we'd have to look at during the concept review with your civil engineer.
And yes, that is mostly the idea, is to figure out how to reduce impervious by using them. And we just know that from some other jurisdictions, it's something that's like highly encouraged. But those are like reasonable points, it sounds like.
Pervious paving and green roof are both highly encouraged. They have limitations on their ability to be used, but we certainly encourage them.
Okay. Other comments? We're good. Did we do it under 25 minutes? Okay, good. Do you all have any other questions for us right now?
Somebody had mentioned in the comments that they could, it's one of the reviewers who mentioned that they could help us improve on our plan. I'm not sure which one of it. I don't recall who it was.
Yeah, I think at this point, what we've tried to do is provide you comments based on code requirements and sort of submit it. I think probably the best thing to do would be to get some consultants on your team.
Yeah.
And start to explore and refine the concept.
Yeah, I mean, before we spent money doing that, we wanted to at least approach and see if this is even feasible to do. Because, rather than make 3 McMansions, it's, we like the idea of what the county's trying to do with the 2050 plan. And we saw this as a unique opportunity to possibly fit into some of that.
Yep, and like the comments were stated, the master plan set the vision and the code lags behind. And some changes need to occur to really enact those things. So hopefully the comments were helpful.
Very helpful. Yeah, no, very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, everybody, so much. And one other sort of process thing, I guess it's our tendency to want to fill out a bunch of responses to the comments. If we were to do so, would you all be able to respond, or should we be doing that like on a ad hoc one-off basis, or?
Yeah, so the concept plan concludes with today's meeting.
Right.
And so there's no need to formally respond to any of the comments. They're really meant for your benefit.
Right.
And as you determine what your next steps are, and if you'd like to do another concept, you can certainly put in another concept plan and we would go through the process again.
Okay.
But there's no need to follow up.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate everybody's time and input. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. See you next.